Welcome to The Music Reel. It's an independent podcast that shares stories from every industry across the planet that music touches. We uncover how music connects all of us, and we shed light on those who need our support now more than ever. Welcome to The Music Reel. I'm your host, Nicola Burton. Today I'm speaking with Aly Cook, who is the Chief Publicist for Key 2 Artist Promotions, and she's based in New Zealand. Aly, it's a pleasure to speak to you today. How are you going?
Kia ora, really good, thank you.
What is it you say? Kora? What is that?
Kia ora,
Kia ora.
which is a standard greeting in New Zealand. It's like hello, good evening, kia ora,
I like it because in Australia, you just say, "G'day, how you going? How you doing?" Like,
well,
doesn't have that same ring.
I guess we adopt a lot more of our Indigenous people. Like it's normal standard practice here to say kia ora. You just say that, ngā mihi, like whenever you deal with government departments, you're always greeted in Māori and signed off in Māori on your letters.
Oh, that's lovely. Wow. Yeah, we Australians have a lot to learn. But look, I wanted to talk to you today, Aly. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. You have been in the industry for a very long time. And the Music Reel is all about, what's happened this year as a result of the lockdowns. Now, your business is actually busier than ever. So I want to talk about that, where, the music industry is still really not back to normal, yet you have gone crazy. Can you tell me about what that's all about?
Well, it was certainly not anticipated. I didn't think that was actually going to happen. So, I thought, oh, that's it. I said to my partner in Sydney, Therese, I said, we are toast. This is it. It's all going to be over. Like, that's it. Like, these artists aren't. And bang, no. First of all, there was kind of a hesitation. Like, a few of them had things lined up and they're like, oh, no, we'll wait till COVID's over. And then it was like, oh, COVID's not going to be over. I can't play live. Oh, how am I going to keep a profile? And then they're like, no, I'm going to release that album anyway. Like, I can't wait till 2024 or whenever there's a vaccine and the world's so cool healed. Everybody just went, oh, I'm going to release something because I can't play live. And it just escalated. And we've got, I think about 10 or 12 releases on the go now before Christmas, which is just a lot. That's actually a lot of artists to be putting out there. And I mean, we're quite good in that we have a lot of regular positions on community radio across Australia that we every week we're scheduling in regular interviews that happen every week. And so that's normal. But we're getting more and more now. So it's just really, it's great. I mean, it's great that artists are actually getting out and still lifting their profile by doing the live, doing the social media. And of course, that's been our thing. That's the part of the music industry that we actually deal with is the social media and the radio interview side of it. So,
okay, so this is the question for you. So if you've had 10 to 12 releases, right, you're working on right now, and a lot of other people are saying the same thing, they've never been this busy. How do you cut through the noise when so many more artists are actually online doing the same thing? What's your point of difference in order to get those artists the interviews and the editorials and the reach that they're actually looking for?
Yeah, well, I guess we actually have, we have a relationship with community radio that's gone back for 3 or 4 years that we've been together as Key 2, but even further for me as a publicist, as a major publicist as well. So I think really appreciating the media that you do have is really important. Every single radio interview that happens for one of our artists, we post it out again across social media. We make a point of trying to listen to that station online when our artist is on. We post when our artist is on. We actually do as much in promotion for that community radio show that we do for our artists. That is part of our ethos is, when we say that when you sign up to Key 2, we have a backstage area of our website that is password protected, where radios sign up. They tell us whether they do interviews. They tell us when their show is on. They tell us what URL to go to. And we've got hundreds of DJs signed up on there that come and download our artists. So we only do the artists that are being promoted through us. We're not a free-for-all distribution, though we do use another one called CRS in Australia that we use that also goes out to a lot of people. We say to those radio people, please tell us when you play our artists. Please tell us when the show is on. Please tag us here. And so we put a lot of effort into promoting those people, because a lot of those people in those small community stations are volunteers. They do that out of the goodness of their heart, and thank goodness for them, because they are airtime. Now, there might only be a handful listening to that station and a handful listening to that station and a handful, but you know what? That's a handful of people that all of a sudden hear your artist. And so we appreciate each and every one of those community radio show hosts around the place, and we work to promote them as well.
Isn't
as
that
our
incredible
artists.
that they're volunteers and they've dedicated themselves to actually going out to build the profile of music artists?
There are thousands of them across Australia, and I mean that we really appreciate them. And people try to gun for all the big commercial and all of that sort of stuff, and certainly we do get, I've certainly been on people like Alan Jones myself. I've been, on ABC National and things like that. And sometimes you get an artist across the line. Sometimes you do get an artist across the line with a good story. So having a good story is really, really important. If there's a story to the song, then that helps us to get someone to write about it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to write about it, because you can only present the story. You can only do what we call pitches. So Therese in our business does most of the radio scheduling, although I join in and I do that with her, but I do a lot of the pitches. So I sit there and I write the thoughtful email telling that person's story, and I'll pitch them out to whatever magazine or whatever blog that may be, and say, I think this person would make a great story for your blog, and this is why I think they'd make a good story. And so it's about pitching the story and getting the story out. And I guess our market with Therese and I, a lot of our artists are actually sort of the mid-range artists. They're not the big guys that get all the big fees at the festivals. They're kind of like, they get some look in at some of the good festivals, and they're making good product. They're using good producers. A lot of them have got day gigs, and so they are a weekend musician, but have a day gig, a day job that they have, and they still want to pursue a music career part-time. And that is the basis of our clients. Well, that section of the clients has gone mad because they still have a job. They aren't, and for some ways I'm actually quite thankful that I don't have the bigger guys that were reliant on the great big festival gigs to pay their way, because they're not so much our clients, but now their funds are questionable, whereas our clients have actually, their funds really haven't changed a lot, apart from they don't have their weekend gigs. Yeah. But they still dedicated to putting their music out there. And so I think that's been part of the key as to why we're actually so incredibly busy, and it's nuts. We're not turning anybody away, and we are expanding now. So a lot of, like I said, a lot of the radio stations have actually we've got a regular slot on, 6:30 on Lake Macquarie FM with Wayne Osborne is ours every week, and has been forever. So we know that every week we put an artist in that slot, and we've got lots of slots like that. I've just started at 7 a.m. on a Thursday morning on Oz CMR, which is an internet-based station down in Mildura. So every 7 a.m. I'm either on talking about our releases for that week, or I put in an artist for that week. And so that, because we promote the shows, those shows recognize that we promote them. So
that's a really great way of looking at it, Aly. You're actually building a network community, a partnership between music artists and the media.
Not only that, but music artists and music artists. Now, we have a Spotify playlist, Key to Artists Spotify playlist, and I have a group of 50 artists that are all on it. And every day I go, I've added this new one. Who's got it on play? Oh, I'm listening to you. And I take a screenshot and put it in a joint message, and everyone goes, I've got it on play. I've got it on play. I've got it on play.
Right.
And so we've actually got our artists. We refer to them as our artist family, and they work together. Nobody is competition with anybody else here. Let's get each other's backs.
Love it.
So the story is, if you're with us, we promote each other as well as we do that work for you and arrange the interviews. When you're on a station, please make sure that you post the post up and you say to your fans, this is where you listen to me. I'm on, Wayne at 6:30 on Lake Macquarie FM, and here's the link to listen. And so, yeah, it's a mutual thing, because you know what? We can't do without that community station. We don't have big labelled artists that have got money to buy their way into interviews. We don't, and I'm sorry, payola is as good today as it was 100 years ago. It's still very much who's who at the zoo. But we managed to cut through, and then I managed to jam my door. I love that thing of jam my foot in the door, then I throw my shoulder through it, and then I just force the door open,
The visual is interesting, Aly. The visual is interesting.
Well, that's
Aly,
it with getting to
away.
with getting to the commercial, stations. And then also over the years, I've had kind of an advantage, because occasionally I come along with somebody like Andrea Bocelli, for example, where I was doing that for Sam Riggy out of Sydney. So I did all the publicity across New Zealand and all of the setup of the ticketing across Australia and New Zealand, and all of the social media campaigns for that. And so you come in the door with someone like that to a major network, and can we have an interview with Andrea Bocelli? It's like, oh, can you tell us what your listenership is for the last month, right? Can you show us your statistics, please? And you're actually choosing from 3 newspapers who's going to get the one interview, or 4 radio stations as to who's going to get the one interview. So because I come along sometimes with carrots for media, that's been an advantage for my indies. So sometimes it's been like, I've done major artists into Women's Weekly or whatever, or now I've got this story about this couple that are both nominated for, for Country Song of the Year, and I think it's a great story for you. Bang, I got a 2-page spread in the Women's Weekly for them, So it's kind of, sometimes you can leverage off the fact that you might be a publicist that comes along with a big carrot occasionally. So that sort of helped. But I think the main thing is promoting the media, because media want to be promoted too. They want people to go watch them or hear their show. And whether they be a big media or a small media, it's really important to say, my artist is on that show, and promote that out.
But
as
it's also it's an acknowledgement and a thank you to them for volunteering their time to build an artist profile and to add so much value to the music industry. I think we forget about that, as artists, and I guess as agents and publicists and managers, we focus on getting that interview and getting that song played, without thinking of, without the mechanism in place of that incredible person in the media who is throwing like thousands of people every week, that want that same thing, being able to say, you know what, thank you so much. And like, I really want to feature you because of you, the music industry works. And we forget about that, don't we?
Yeah, well, it's important to look after your networks. It's important to look after the people that look after you. Quite often from here in New Zealand, I will tune in to some of the morning country radio shows across Australia that happen, even though I don't have an artist on it. I'll still tune in and say, hey, morning, I'm listening in from New Zealand. The next thing I'll hear them go, oh, Aly's listening from New Zealand, And so I make a point of trying to actually visit their show and actually show support for what they're doing, because without that community radio network in Australia, we would be screwed.
We would all be screwed.
We would be completely screwed right now. And so I've always valued them anyway, which is why we've got, and that's how we've managed to cut through, is we have so many stations. I think we've got about 10 or 15 stations that we've got a regular weekly slot on at that time every week. They know that they'll have an artist for 15 minutes there, and we never fail to put an artist in that slot.
That is so good, because so many artists out there are thinking, damn, I really wish that I could actually be on the radio like that. And you're guaranteeing this constant supply of recording artists with new material for the media, which I think it's a wonderful different way of looking at it. But Aly, I want to ask you, obviously there's been no gigs, right? So all of your artists, they're out there with their releases and they're getting radio editorials and interviews and play. Has that no gig situation changed the results of their releases? Has it had any impact on that according to your metrics? What do you reckon?
No, I don't really think so, because the time that they would spend in putting a gig and playing a gig to 100 people, they'll sit their ass on their computer and get 400 people on their page if they really want to sit there and do it and introduce, you know what I mean? You can or they'll play live to people and they'll get just as many people as they would have had in the pub, except instead of drinking and talking to Bob and wandering around and getting pissed and not taking any notice of what music they're watching at all, they're intently watching them on the computer one-on-one, them talking to them. And so I actually think, you know, I mean, I love a live gig and everything, and I miss live gigging myself as an artist, but I think that the time can be spent in other ways to gather audience. It's all about gathering audience, one fan at a time. You know, that's what I say to people.
You're saying, Aly, that this is an opportunity for us to perhaps rejig the entire mechanism of our industry, which is all roads have been leading to live gigs.
So yeah, well, all roads do lead to live gigs, but you know, here's the interesting thing, because people sort of do, and I'm talking to an agent here, so this is probably like whose incomes come out of live gigs. So, but you think about it, when you loved Linda Ronstadt or Neil Young or whatever, did you love them because you discovered them at a gig, or did you love them because you actually heard them on radio first? Then when they came to your town, you just got off your ass and paid for a ticket.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like you hear the song, you relate to it. Yeah.
You discover, well, now we have the internet. So you can discover an artist through the internet. And then when you see them come live, you're going to want to go. So it's a chicken before the egg. And I think that the egg of getting heard and getting a bit of a following can actually happen without the live. Then you've got a reason to go out and play live. And then it's a matter of building your database and having your database localized.
So everyone who knows me, listen to what Aly's saying. How many times have I said this? Probably 1 million times. Building your database, because that's the key, isn't it? And a lot of people don't necessarily do that. When a band comes in and they want us to manage them, I always say, all right, where's your database? My what? Do you have an Excel spreadsheet where you've got like everyone's names and addresses and mobiles and email addresses? And no, why not? Yeah. Like that's your business database. That's who you sell to. Like, why don't you have that? Aly, it's so good for you to say that. Build your database.
Actually, in saying that, interestingly enough, the last big gig I did, and with you guys, was opening for Gangajang. I actually had a number of artists, of database, of people, of fans from Facebook that actually turned up at those gigs. I was shocked at the Hamilton Hotel. They're like, "Hi, Aly, I'm your Facebook friend. I've come along. I've finally come to Brisbane." You know, like,
how good is that?
And yeah, I actually had quite a few turn up that actually some travelled and drove down to Hamilton Hotel from various places. And I thought, yeah, you know, this is finally working, because I hadn't gone up and done anything in Queensland. But boy, when I turned up, they drove to come see me. They got hotels and stayed next to the gig. And, you know, so it was like, yeah, you know, so that's what it's about. It's about getting your database together. And so every one of those community stations, you know, that's another person you've met in that town of Mildura or whatever, and then you meet fans. And the same when you're out at gigs. I think when you do get gigs back, is you should be building your database through there. And if somebody comes up and goes, "Oh, I love your music," go, "Oh, have you got a card? You know, have you got a card, a business card? Oh, can I grab your number? You know, have you got an email address? I'll send you a track." You know, like, so actually grab those people who walk up and say, "I loved your voice." Make sure that they don't walk away from you without the contact, because that is a person who saw you live, who loved you. That is a person that you can say, "Here's my new track," or "I'm giving you this single, and, you know, here's where you can get my album. Thanks so much for coming up and reaching out to me at the gig." And because each one of those people is so valuable, because I've realized, being a person who crowdfunded my own albums, those people were actually the people who funded my album to the tune of $20,000 on my, first album. I think I've done about $100,000 worth of crowdfunding, and a lot of those people were people who saw me live that believed in me. And so there's more than, yeah.
This is the essence of grace. And grace is not this nice little word. It's all about appreciation and gratitude. Being grateful for the media, making sure you mention them, other people, other artists that you're working with, the fans that come along, the venue managers, every single person that you're working with. If you operate within this place of grace, you appreciate them. They feel it.
And I got that inspiration. I got that inspiration from somebody else. So there you go. In 1991, I toured with BB King. And, I'd go and I'd do my job because I was like the road manager in New Zealand for the promoter. And, it's, hi, Mr. King. And he's like, oh, please call me BB, Aly, And I was like, because everybody was Mr. until told otherwise. And I recall the first night we were in Hamilton and he'd finished the gig. And this is he's 70 odd years old at this stage. He's just done that Love Comes to Town with U2, And he's there in the hotel room and the manager comes out, his manager comes out and he goes, he said, we're going to go out to the backstage door and we're going to file them in 10 at a time. Now, I've said to you before that things have changed, like it used to be that you kept everybody from a distance. There was no such thing as meet and greet in those days. There was no way in hell you let a fan meet the artist, whereas nowadays it's changed up. The meet and greet is like a big ticket item and it's done at every concert, and people want to see their artist online, talking to them, feeling like they're getting real conversations. So anyway, this is back in those days. And I said, we're going to what? We're going to file them in what? He's like, 10 at a time. And I'm like, into BB's room? And he's like, yep. And I went, really? And he went, yep. He said, so come out to the backstage door with me. He said, everything is BB's fruits in there and everything. I put little, fruits and things out and his little snacks and everything. And he's got his room. Anyway, so I come back into the room. We go out to the backstage area. There's about 100 people out there, right? This man's played a 2-hour show. So he's sweaty. He's an older man. He's got a 14-piece band and the band are away eating. So this would happen every night, actually, I realised on tour. So the band would go and eat after the gig. They'd go to a separate room. BB would go to his room. And we let in the first 10. I was like, you, stop. And these are all people that are at the backstage door waiting for that photograph of the band coming out onto the bus, And they're like, oh, what's happening? What's happening? Come with me, And I'm filing, knock, 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 knock on the door, open up the door, and there's Lucille in the corner, the black guitar, and there's BB, and he's got a big stack of 8x10 black and white photographs and a big felt texter and some BB King pins and sunglasses. And I come in and I go, BB, this is Angela or whatever, and these people would just be like, there'd be tears streaming down their face, they're like, oh my gosh, it's such an honor to meet you. And you're like, they're like, now would you, and he'd sit there and go, now would you like a photograph? Oh, and who's that too? And he'd sit there and he'd sign a black and white, would you like a pair of BB King sunglasses? Oh yes, please. Oh, thank you, okay, this way, thanks ma'am. Well, this is Johnny, he's from New Plymouth and he's come down, he's driven all the way to see you. Oh, hello, how are you? Shake, and would you like a photograph? And so it would go on until everybody at the backstage door was dealt with, and there'd be like 150 people waiting there, right? In between, while I was doing that, BB would go out onto the stage after the gig. Now, always, you will know this, big concerts, you get those last people who hang around and they're watching the, before they clear the venue and kick everyone out. There's always one or two that hang around, look up at the stage as the road crew are kind of starting the pack down and stuff like that. BB would walk out on stage and he'd go, would you like a pair of BB King sunglasses? Here you go. They go, oh! And they're like looking up, going, right, like this, And so he'd do that. And at the end of the first night, I went into and I went, my God, BB, I said, I've never toured with anybody that does this. I said, what, why, like nobody ever meets. I said, you've just made these people's lives. And he said, Aly, he said, if they're waiting for me at the backstage door, He said, they've brought every album. Every time I come to their town, they buy a ticket and they come. He said, if they're waiting for a photo, the least I can do is shake their hand and say thank you.
Wow. The appeal.
And I went, this is the king of blues, you know, and I just thought, lesson learned. Lesson learned.
If we can all
you appreciate every single fan.
Yeah, find that inner BB King in all of us and live in grace and appreciate the fans, the media, your publicist, your agent, the venue, all of the music artists, everyone in your network, so that it's a team and everyone's working together as a team. Aly Cook, what a great chat we've had. Thank you for sharing how great things are with your business. And anyone watching, if you want to get in touch with Aly because you want to release some music, I'll make sure I put all her contact details in all of the post for this interview. Aly, take care, and we will talk very soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.